Hey, BIP of Bizarre Angels Productions. Good morning, everyone, because I'm going to try to see if I can get this one out before 12. And yeah, there's a blizzard where I'm at and where certain other people have. I've seen like one or two comments complaining about the blizzard too. So just stay warm, stay comfortable, get something to eat, and just make sure your health is in order. As for Kamen Zeztz, apparently there's been issues with the playback stream, which some people have blamed on the blizzard. So, go back to watch it from the start, since you'll probably be able to do so. That's what I'm doing. I'm literally just rewatching it from the start right now, pausing where I have to, and then getting the screenshots where I need to. So, we're gonna go through this. I'm gonna write down my script, my thoughts a little bit more, so it comes off less longer than last time. But let's talk about episode 19. So that's why she cut ties with Nazca to focus on working with Code, which I feel like is a double-edged sword, because on one hand, you get to focus, but on the other hand, you're just pushing everyone away. And I think with Baku, it's an actual interesting comparison, because Baku has both his sister and the detective, so he's able to get a lot more done with the support and help, which is kind of one of the things about Kamen Rider. Yeah, you might be alone on the battlefield, but you got other people to support you, which is what makes the show usually interesting. Okay, I'm actually kind of curious about the enemy organization blowing your cover, because don't the Nightmares agents already know who most of the cast is if most of them were associated with Code and went to that school? Wait, so the Nightmare was designed to help her remember her time as an agent, but does that mean Code intentionally put her in a situation where she would have to recall a nightmare just so that could get her back into the field? Or did the lady want to make sure that there were no potential operatives and use Nox to make sure that Baku couldn't get in the way? Interesting. I guess you could say one who does not fight does not survive. Am I right, Ryuki fans? I know it's from Kuda's perspective, but I do like the fact that it shows that this is the type of person that Nazca eventually developed into. Oh, Nem, you know if you're going to ask that question in a cryptic sense, and suddenly Nox is going to appear out of nowhere and say something even more cryptic? Oh, crap, right on cue, too. Again, tropes aren't bad, it all depends on how you execute it, but I don't think Zeztz is executing their tropes terribly. Okay, so yeah, they are confirming that the Nightmares are part of Nem, which they did hint it at before. Oh, plus, I do love the scene with the butterflies. It really shines the visual imagery of the show. So, my theory is that when Nem ended up in a dream world, it created some sort of garden, like in Miraculous, where Hawkmoth keeps his hawks. But in the mind, it's trapped in this prison where she can't usually escape. But thanks to the Nightmares, she's able to break out of it and go to other people's dreams to help them, but she doesn't know that because the Nightmares are also being able to escape and target them, she's helping them while the Nightmares are going on destroying him, and she doesn't have someone that she knows that can help stop the Nightmares, at least until Baku showed up. The question I want to know is Nem the only person that this has happened to? Are there other comatized victims who have been used to have Nightmare spread, and then Code had to send agents to fight them? Also, is this monster a part of Nem's nightmare or not? Because I still don't know what the hell this thing is, and it still creeps me the hell out. Remember how I said in the Arc 1 review and analysis the cast would be perceived better once they started to interact more? This case being so close to Nayuta finally makes her shake off her skepticism. And I like the back and forth between her and Tetsuya, because despite him being really good at comedy, people underestimate just how well Tetsuya is when it comes to perception, since he's got more experience than her when it comes to these cases. With Nazca's emotions being understandable because she doesn't want her friend to be dragged into this and wants to do something to stop her from getting hurt anymore. But Tetsuya's pointing out she's a public safety bureau. Let me know if I got that right, officer. And like how him and Nazca took an oath, clearly this is her choice, and Nazca either has to respect it or fight in a way to support her friend. And even Minami's role is subtle but helpful, since Nazca already knows that Baku is capable, but she's been skeptical of the dreams and the cases, though that's slowly cracked down. With Minami, she hasn't been able to see much of it, but she knows through her heart to heart with her brother that he will do anything to keep people safe. And you could buy it more since Nazca's getting an outsider perspective from people who aren't a case member. Lol, I like the moment Kureta notices Baku spotting her. She gives him the head tilt to follow her without saying a word. That speaks her experience. Also kind of reminds me of when Gia did the head tilt in Megaforce and the rest of the team charged into battle. Oh, so this is the reveal for Code, and it turns out Code was dream learning, aka teaching them to fight in dreams, although 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, clearly from the flashback, they can't all be the same age, because Nox and Kureta are older, and 3 is definitely older than Baku. So they trained them ahead of time, not because the Nightmares were already there. So what was patient zero for the nightmare scenario that was going to cause them? But how did they know the Nightmares are coming? That's not a nitpick, that's a mystery that there might foreshadow, but I can see why Japanese fans feel like there's too many mysteries and not enough explanations. I do like Baku's belief that his love for secret agents may have been taught to him instead of being genuine, and Kureta's dual questions bring up a valid point. Yeah, being an agent means he can save the Dreamers because, well, no one else is doing it and he generally wants to help people. But the real question is, were those desires to help his own, or was it because it was programmed, well, psychologically into his own? and it's been bothering him so much he ends up going to Sayuri. I still gotta get used to the fact that she's got an awake and asleep persona. And while I'm not sure she's acting as a therapist or someone involved in psych evaluation, she intentionally pries into his insecurities, but since she's a villain with the facade of helping, or at least that's why she moonlights as, she does give him solid advice. But since she's a villain with the facade of helping, or at least that's why she moonlights as, she does give him solid advice to manipulate him into being vulnerable enough to take his mind, but it fails and gives him the inspiration. Though I guess I respect Nox for at least hoping mind controlling him would get him to stop working with Code, since he clearly doesn't want him dead. But she's not going to give up making him suffer, just to get his darkest desires. And I wonder if it's to make a stronger nightmare than the gun one that came from him. That being said, I think Minami going to check on him was fine, but I would have reversed it so he talks to Minami and still has his doubts. Then he goes to Sayuri and gets the motivation he needs. But you can argue it makes more sense since he needs to go to bed to help Kureta and Nasuka out more. Speaking of Nem, I do like she's got doubts about her actions and the roles about the nightmares being at fault, though I said she's being used without realizing. But similar to Rene, who was being gaslit when Athropos was going to blame her for the death of all her friends, Nem's blaming herself because she thought she was helping. And in a fun inverse of Rene, because Rene was helping fight the Amalgams physically, Nem was helping people with their dreams. Though, like Hotaro did with Rene, Baku points out that it's not her fault, so she's not the one sending nightmares to people, the villains are. And he's just so sweet, because you think based on episodes 1 and 4, he just has a fanboy crush on them, but he generally has had enough experience with her to know that they can make good dreams. That being said, the people who hated Hotaro and Rene's scene because a certain critic complained that Athropos blamed Rene for what was going on because it was obvious that it wasn't. But something I feel like people tend to forget is that when you have teenage characters, especially, and adults go through this too, especially younger ones, kind people or people that have been through emotional distress aren't going to be easily able to handle manipulation and verbal abuse, and someone preying on their insecurities. And it takes a while for someone to help grow out of that. Rene low-key suffered from depression, and just as she was building herself up, her rival came to put that into question. And Nem's biologically 16 too, but she spent her whole time as an idol, then stuck in her dreams, learning that the nightmares are tied to her actions. Both of them are allowed to be emotionally vulnerable, and it was disappointing to see that the fanbase hate one, and I just hope it Zeztz that people aren't going to unfairly give them flack for similar ideals. Alright, it's time for the Nasuka and Kureta versus Death Game Nightmare, and it's kind of cute because it's not the real Nasuka, but Kureta imagines they'd fight together. Ready? Fight! What? It's a Geats joke. Takahashi worked on both shows, and Nasuka's actress did fight in the Desire Grand Prix games as Sae. At least 2 of them outside of her past season. Huh, so that's what he looks like underneath the mask. But damn, Gottschalk spoiled us on having a non-suited allies fight alongside the main character, so it's cool to see them fight together. Oh damn, he pulled her by the weave. No, you idiot, it's his hair. Jeez, even bet the bats. But I wish they were more in sync, but Kureta sneak attacking him to back her girl up was pretty cool. Then Nasuka played a distraction for Kureta to shoot him. Honestly, Zeztz has to finish this himself, but I think they were doing a pretty good job for civilians. Nox, you can't just say you're going to avenge the people you're letting die. No, at least he's consistent in his sympathetic side towards the agents. But most people, I agree on this one. He wants revenge on Code, but you don't do that by siding with the people making the nightmares easier to break out and harm people. Though, to be fair, Nox clearly needs the resources in order even to make that possible. Though I like Baku's response to Nox. Like, exactly, Code's got problems you'll have to address, but right now the nightmares aren't caused by them, and if they're going to use him, he's going to focus on using it to save people, regardless of if that desire was implanted in him, because no one deserves to go through that. Kind of makes me wish Yusaku from Vrains went through similar developments. I'm trying to figure out exactly what the Death Game Nightmare's powers are, because all I got is projectile launching and high voltage currents, because technically it's just bringing games to real life and dangers where the losers get electrocuted. OMG, he lifted up the whole ground. See, this is what I love with the Dream World. They use the budget wisely for the creativity shots. And with Baku's line, as he uses the great sword, I like how he points out that it's not his mission to protect his comrades, but he wants to protect them. And it's an agent's job to point out both sides of his dilemma, but he wants to protect his comrades, but it's an agent's mission. And that's the last line that gets you to Kureta when you see her face. I've seen people say that this last scene with the nightmare summoning the energy cards and Zeztz slashing through them with an electrified rider slash a la Royal Straight Flush was a Blade reference. Anyone else want to argue it's more of a Geats reference, since with Mark 9 he throws a sword shattering all of Gazer's barriers? Bye-bye, butterfly. Miraculous Kamen Rider. Come on, I had to. So, Lady wanted Nox to finish off Kureta and Baku. I do agree there's still the Noxa who wants to help stop nightmares, and if I'm right, his character arc is going to be around accepting he has to change or reform Code, or make his organization, but as usual, we need to see how that will play out. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't tell Nazca in the class photo. Also, never tell a woman who's pissed off to smile unless you're trying to cheer her up. Okay, he did kind of deserve that kick. Oh, make-out time. I mean, make-up time. That's what I'm talking about from earlier. Baku's speech got to Kureta, and she's putting her faith into Nazca while she decides to go back to being an agent. And like I said, this was a good focus for Nazca, because like Akari from Ghost, she finally shreds the skepticism now that it's a personal case to her. So she's going to take her role as a paranormal affairs investigator seriously. It's subtle, but we've seen small traces of growth from her, and I'm looking forward to see how much she develops going forward. Okay, Tetsuya was giving her a genuine compliment. That kick he didn't deserve. So Kureta's going back to 3, but she's not becoming a writer, but she is getting a driver to become a lord and reinstate her agent status as number 6? Awesome. Alright, next episode. Let's clear with no continues. See, these are official subs, so clearly the team knew that they were making an X-Aid reference to Takashi's other works. Alright, time to put this all together, but let me know your thoughts on Kamen Rider Zeztz episode 19. Go check out the stream if it stopped being frozen. Have a good Sunday, and if you made it this far, type have good dreams, and stay warm. Meanwhile, you can check out my Toku playlist and past Kamen Rider videos, especially since all those Gotchard videos that I've been making haven't been hitting as much as I thought the algorithm would support them. But I'll see you in the next one. I forgot my sign-off. BIP of Bizarre Angels Productions, signing off. Oh, that was set up for next week with it being the main monster of the week. Gotcha.